last quarter and a half was phenomenal. It tried to match the Ole Miss Georgia fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Chambliss did his fourth quarter thing yet again.
Dude, that was it 18 seconds, right, is when they got the ball?
Yes.
18 seconds?
Yep.
And you get a legitimately good opportunity to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Those first two throws and catches, by the way, let's give the receiver some credit now, too.
No,
because
I'm not giving anybody any credit. It's only Trinity Chambliss.
Do we
Top 8 pick.
Within the Chiefs, yeah, after that performance, I would. Do we think the Chiefs wide receivers are catching those balls?
Probably not.
The Ole Miss receivers are.
Yeah, probably not. I don't know.
And I will point out that final play.
Uh-huh.
Now.
We'll get into it.
Okay. We don't have to.
That's fine. We'll get it. We'll definitely get into it because you and I agree on this. So, but I do think there's a sort of a bigger conversation with that I want to have. We're going to be on the same page with that. Let me preview the show real quick. Matt Derrick comes up at 11 o'clock. Kendall Gammon at noon. Mick Schaefer 12:30. Cuts to end the show. That's what's going on. We'll talk about Indiana, Oregon tonight. I've heard the 5-star number that's been thrown around yesterday. We'll talk about why that really doesn't matter in tonight's matchup. The discourse around Ruben Bain last night I thought was interesting, and I'm trying not to view it through hey, I'm just going to overlook any of the negatives because I'm, having a crush on Ruben Bain for the Chiefs. I'd like them to blow for Bain. But I do think last night was an overreaction to a degree. So I want to get into that. Certainly, we'll talk a little bit about the Royals arbitration numbers. They reached arbitration with every player they reached an agreement with every player except 2. Right now, they have an arbitration meeting that will be scheduled for later on. And they can still negotiate between that time. It's Vinny Pasquantino and Chris Bubich that they did not come to an agreement with.
Yeah.
They are $500,000 apart on Vinny and $1 million apart on Chris Bubich. But again, they can come to some sort of an agreement. I want to talk about why that is.
Yeah.
And at some point in today's show, maybe with Mick Schaefer, that we may get into that.
Because one of the players I think makes sense and one does not.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on that. And we may agree, we may disagree. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like those things when it's like one makes sense, the other doesn't. Oh, I thought it was this one that makes sense. So we'll get into some of those things and why I think the conference discourse around bowl games are just really stupid.
Agreed.
It's pretty dumb. But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about the Instant Classic, but let's get it out of the way, what a lot of people ended the game talking about, which was the final play and the non-call on, let's be honest, was a pass interference call.
I got excited because this was a very obvious one.
Because you're Sterling Stamp. You were trying to hit that.
Hey, I was Ole Miss, but I also had the under, so at that point, that didn't matter either.
I had
that Carson Beck touchdown was a real kick in the stones. That was a double whammy.
I had Miami -3 and an alternate under of 60. Whew. Thank God.
Look at you. I had
man.
I had Ole Miss plus 3.5, and I was like,
that was rough.
Easy.
That was rough.
I'm like, missed the extra point. The extra point.
That was rough. But go ahead. So
I like that final play because it's obvious. I understand the thought process of, well, there's going to be a little bit of pushing and shoving in those on both sides, offense and defense on the Hail Marys. But that wasn't really a traditional Hail Mary. That was more of a
35-yard pass.
35-yard pass that was semi-one-on-one-ish. And it was so obvious that it was pass interference. And I see on Twitter, it goes, well, you don't want the refs to make to decide the game in that situation. I go, no, they are deciding the game by not calling a flag that's a flag at any other point in the game. Now, I understand that traditionally is not called. I understand that aspect of it, that traditionally that is not called. And I get, again, to an extent of if it's even questionable, don't call it in that moment. That, to me, wasn't questionable. That was a guy holding him by the collarbone of his jersey and just ripping him down. At some point, we have to have some sort of, hey, man, it's not just Armageddon at the end of the game. It's not the purge. You can't do anything you want now. There has to at least be some sort of rules that maintain a society with 5 seconds left in a game. I perplexed by that. I mean, again, great game, so yeah. I'm okay.
I had Miami, and I still think it was pass interference. But here's the thing. I've said this a number of times that instead of complaining from the offensive standpoint, instead of the offensive complaining, play their game. I've talked about this with the Chiefs. If the Chiefs have a Hail Mary, send the guys down on one side, and before Mahomes throws it, just have Kelsey go and truck all the defensive players. Just knock them all out. You have like one player. Let's just create it with these receivers right now. Let's say it's week 18. They needed a Hail Mary. They go down the field. Let's say Rashee Rice because he's
Why
bigger.
is Mike Pennell down there?
I know. Let's say Rashee Rice because he was on the team in week 18, probably the last time. Well, he was on the team but not on the field. But still, let's say Rashee Rice, he stops at the 5-yard line. Everybody else goes into the end zone. And as Mahomes gets ready to throw it, Kelsey and the other receivers just bull rush all the defensive players, and Rashee Rice fades back into the end zone and catches the football. Would they call offensive pass interference, or would they go, you know what, this is just what happens on these particular plays? Because they don't call it on the defense when the defense is doing that. I say offense, design a play. What are they going to do, call offensive pass interference, and then you got to do it again?
Well, no, because
then you got to complete
time runs out.
It's true. It's a good point. It's a good point. Well, are you going to complete it without offensive pass interference?
Probably
anyway?
not.
So the odds of you catching that anyway are probably less than the odds of the official throwing the flag.
So I don't argue that point, but I do think it is the one time of the game that the NFL and college football and football in general where the defense has such an advantage. And almost any other time, if the offense can get away with a little bit of hand check and defense, you breathe on a guy, it's a flag.
Well, I mean, before Ole Miss scored their final touchdown, that 3rd down and 10 pass interference was like a little tug, a little pull, but flag. I mean, this one was, hand-to-hand combat. This was a UCF takedown.
Yeah, and by the way,
UFC.
I did think that one on that Miami's was pass interference.
It was ticky-tack, but it was pass interference.
I think it was.
But my point being is if you're going to call that, how do you just ignore only because it was the final play of the game? That's the only reason is because they go, well, we don't want to throw a penalty here. In college, it almost makes more sense because it's not a spot foul. I can understand if you're at the 50-yard line and you throw a Hail Mary and there's pass interference in the end zone and you go, I'm not going to throw a flag here. That was iffy. It was kind of back and forth. Now they're going to get the ball at the 1-yard line. In college, they would have got the ball at the 20.
Yeah,
the 35
yards, yeah.
So you'd have got the ball at the 20. You'd have one more shot at it, and maybe you score a touchdown, maybe you don't. But it doesn't give them the ball at the 1. But still, to your point, why do we stop officiating and officiate differently on the final play of the game? Because what I find to be interesting, and of course we'll connect it locally to some degree, what I find to be interesting is the outrage of that should have been a penalty, while at the same time, if we go back to the Super Bowl in 2022, you can't call that penalty on James Bradbury at that point in the game. You can't do it. You just can't call that penalty on holding on Juju Smith-Schuster at that point in the game. It decided the game, and that's not what the refs are there for, while then arguing, how do you change your officiating there at the end of the game? Why do you not call that? If it's a flag early, it's a flag late, and all of that stuff. I just find it interesting, the different conversation depending on who you're rooting for.
Yeah, and again, I'm traditionally, I mean, this is more basketball and football, but let them play in general. I'm typically
I'm officiated the exact same way. Not just let them play, but officiate it the way that it was.
No, I agree. But
if it's a foul, it's a foul. If it's not, it's not. But with 5 seconds or 2.5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Especially when a precedent has already been set in that game with what it was. But again, the game itself was great.
Oh,
and
it's amazing.
It's almost overlooking, and maybe we're not, but Ole Miss with 18 seconds doing their best Chiefs impersonation.
I mean, the Bills were like, dude, why don't you guys play a little defense? Even the Bills were like, that defense was a little too soft there, okay, guys?
It wasn't even just soft. I mean, the two catches, especially the second one, were bullets and fairly tight coverage on that guy over the middle. And now, obviously, college, the clock stops on a first down. That was a massive help for one of them because they only had one timeout. But even that final throw by Trinidad, that moment's not too big for him, man. That moment is not too big.
It landed in the back corner of the end zone. Like, it landed to where it would have hit that guy. I don't remember which receiver for Ole Miss. Doesn't matter. It landed to where it would have hit him for a touchdown in bounds. And he was rolling to his left. You know why he was rolling to his left? Because Ruben Bain was on the other side, and they designed specifically to roll away from Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain didn't really show up in that game. Anyway, we'll get into some of that a little bit later on, or maybe in the next segment. I don't know. But it was an absolute classic. And maybe the biggest surprise of last night is not that Miami was shooting themselves in the foot, because that's what they've done a number of times this year. Is not that they were the more physical team and just bullied Ole Miss for a good portion of the game, which I thought was going to happen anyway. That wasn't a surprise. To me, the surprise was how well Carson Beck played.
Yeah.
If Carson Beck was generic Beck, Miami loses that game. Those final couple of drives from Carson Beck, the 3rd and 10, the 3rd and 6, the 3rd and 10, his then touchdown run, all of those plays had to be made or it goes into overtime.
Was that a designed? Just real quick on that touchdown run by Beck.
I think that was a one-on-one with Malachi Toney to option route to go out or inside, depending on the leverage of the cornerback.
All 3 trips in the left all went right.
Yeah. Well, from my guess on that is, so Malachi Toney was over there. 2 of them went right. Toney went one-on-one with the cornerback, and he faked left and went back inside because the strong leverage was to the outside. I think that was an option route for Toney. You've got this entire space over here.
Sure.
Unless he's leveraged so far, just turn around and wait for it. If Beck sees Toney turning and throws it, it's a touchdown.
I just thought it was a great play call. I guess, again, not a design run, but it ended up almost being that because everyone's now on the right side.
Yes.
And so once you had the pressure from on the left tackle, he just moved straight up in the pocket. Great run by Beck, obviously, but I thought that was a really intriguing, at least secondary play off of that original play. And so I'll give Beck a lot of credit. On that final drive, there's only one throw that I thought he was panicked on. He had that one that was nearly picked off.
Oh, on the sideline?
On the sideline. That was nearly picked off. And I was, again, that would have been the Ole Miss and the under. I was a thrilled man for a second, but the Sterling stamp was the curse yet again.
Yeah. I mean, how many? What did they drop? 5? Did Miami drop 5 interceptions from Trinidad Chambliss in the game?
There were a few.
So many. Like the line from Trinidad Chambliss looks a little different if Miami's defensive backs didn't look like the 2023 Chiefs wide receivers out there on the field. Like balls right in their hand, hitting them in their chest. A ball just bouncing up in the air, and all you got to do is just secure it like a small little like toss to you, and they can't catch it. It was interesting. Miami last night wrote the script as to how you can dominate a game and lose. I mean, they were. That's what it was. That's what was happening. I was going to come away from that game going, good on Ole Miss and Golding to stay in the game and stay in the fight while you were getting overpowered and you were getting pushed around.